Hello. A while ago, my family went out to Mount St. Helens and went up a ways, and this was a picture I took off in the distance and seeing Mount Adams. I kind of liked this misty thing, so that's kind of why I liked this image, wanted to edit it, and the only thing was I forgot about all of these images that I took on Mount St. Helens for like 6 months. Since I took them like a year ago, and then I forgot about them, and then edited them back a ways, and now I'm creating a video. So because I really like this image, it was my favorite image of the day, and I'm hoping that maybe you'll learn some tips, tricks, or maybe just another way to go about editing images. This is the goal. However, in a tutorial, you can imagine that it will probably not quite look like this. Hopefully it will look about as nice. So let us begin. I'm going to show you, let me just remove some files here. I'm going to show you briefly two different things, the way I go about it and the way that you can go about it, which may be easier. This is UF Raw, unidentified flying raw. You can drag your raw images straight into GIMP on Windows, I believe, and it'll open a UF Raw. I believe they include it. So I'll just go through here, verify that everything looks decent. I'm going to use camera, white balance. If you have RAW, you can mess with that after the fact. If you have JPEG, you hope you got it right originally. You can do some, but not much. I'm going to have a bit of noise reduction on here. And the other thing I'm going to change is, it's easier if you just come in here and click save on each one individually. However, for me, since this is just like default settings, it's nothing special, I'm just going to save the file itself and then run a little script I have that runs the exact same, saves them all exactly the same, applies the same settings to all of them, and saves them out as TIFF. This script I will provide a link to. Now normally I'd run this command. It would align the images just in case they're slightly off. I cannot actually remember if I used a tripod or not. I attempted this without aligning them and it looked really weird, so I'm guessing that it was handheld. But it was bracketed handheld. So, and the result came out pretty decent. So, you don't necessarily have to have a tripod. The catch is that I was carrying a tripod up there, so I was just a bit lazy, I guess. Now, I would run that command, however, that command takes a while, so what do you know? I already ran it. Now, briefly, I'm going to show you a different way to generate the same images. What we're looking for is this and fuse. This. So these are the two images I wanted to start with. If you watched my last tutorial, you'll notice these are the same thing. Infuse and fatal algorithm. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing any of those right, but this is more of the what it looks normal. This is just I like some detail. The interesting thing was when I was recording this before, it did not look like that, which was a problem, as you can imagine. But now I'm going to show you how you can go about generating that a different way. So you come in here, Luminance HDR, an open source program. You come in here, click new, next. You drag in your images, and since that takes a while, I already did it. And you get to this point, you can align the things. As you notice, I did not align them because that takes a while. But then you come in here, you can click, I believe this is fatal? Yes, this is fatal. And I believe the settings I had was 0.9, 0.8, something like 0.5. And then the catch was that in a recent update, they changed the default algorithm. The turn mapping operation tends on blah, 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 blah. Do you want to continue? No, that's right. I want to go to half size. I always, with this non 2.3 version, the way I used to do it, I always did it at half the size just because I found that to look better on most of my images. Yes, I want to continue. And then if you do this, what does it look like? It should look, if we did things right, like this. Yeah, so there you go. That's how you do it in Luminance HDR. Well, let us begin with the actual fun part, playing with it in GIMP. This is also the part where you lose a bunch of detail, because as of this tutorial, GIMP does not fully support 16-bit or more images. So this is all dealing with 8-bit stuff. Drag all these images in here, have the faddle on top, apply it as overlay, decrease the opacity, I never remember how to pronounce that, duplicate this. But first thing what I want to do is I want to come in here and crop it. If you notice, the lens distortion fixing stuff messed up the corners, so I'm going to come in here and cut off a bunch of side pixels. I'd rather cut off too much than have that embarrassing weird coloring at the edge. Nobody really cares if the 10 pixels near the edge of your image don't quite look right, or if you cut out the extra 10 pixels. Now let us modify the coloring a bit. I'm just going to keep the original image down there, infuse image, because I modify this a lot and sometimes it takes many tries before I get it right. I'm going to come in here to levels. I'm going to click auto, and that looks pretty decent, but I'm going to click edit these as curves and then come in here and mess with things a bit. As you notice, the sky is really kind of gray and boring. And what I'm going to attempt to do is because the reason I liked this image was because of this mist. So I'm going to try to make the mist look good and then try to like recover the sky with different images, or paint in some stuff to try to make the sky look better. But you have to, like, when you're dealing with not as high of dynamic range and you didn't actually take all of the stuff you wanted when you were there, you kind of have to do the image in different parts and then like paint in what you want here and there, from mask in and out different parts of the image. And so we'll probably end up doing a bit of that. I want this a bit red just because when I played with this for hours and hours before, and the result I got that I liked had this being somewhat reddish, yeah. And go back to value. Remember to put that back on. The faddle. The reason I want this wacky looking faddle image is because if you can see down here, there's just it just increases the level of detail. But I don't want to increase the level of detail so much that it like drives you crazy, because when you do this, it's like there's haloing everywhere. So it's just like a very subtle, more in certain places. So I'll probably like paint out some up here and leave it more down here. Just this is where you're going to be focusing on the mountain. Down here, if you're looking at the image for more than 5 seconds, it'll kind of subtly make it look better. So keep this thing on, increase that just a hair temporarily. Do I want this? No, that's a pinch much. You know what? I think that looks decent. And now let us duplicate this again, which is why I had a copy of it. Let's show that. Let's come back here to layers. No, colors, levels, auto. And then I'm just gonna mix these two. Like, so the other one was, this is too red, this is too blue. So let's just go in the middle. And since I have it on 2 different layers, since GIMP doesn't yet have the layer effect, the thing where you can apply effects like in Photoshop and you can like modify them after you apply them, and so it's not really applying them. It's like effect layers or something like that. I don't remember what it's called. But if I have it on 2 different layers, I can actually do this after the fact and not have to go reapply the levels. So I can just mix the 2 of them. Now, create a new layer, transparency. Let's just get the vignette over with, because I will apply it at some point. So select something and then select feather. This is the way I apply vignettes. Let's go with this 12ish megapixel, invert, control I, or colors invert, and then shift B or this thing, and then fill with black out here. And wait, be patient, and control A, and then click overlay, does that look better? I don't know. So let's unsure that, create another one. I tend to like mixing a few different sizes, and then like, because I'm never really certain which looks the best, so I just kind of play with it. Feather, let's go with 750 on this one. Invert again, Shift B, let's paint that in there. Fill, I guess is what it's called technically. And then let's show this, and obviously that's a bit much, so let's decrease that a bunch. I don't really know, but that looks sort of decent. Let's try to work on the sky. So as you can see, the sky is it was gray, but it wasn't like this gray. So a sun it's like we're faking reality. We're coming in here and painting the sky. So let's come in here. What is this? Blend tool. You put a gradient in there of solid blue. So that totally doesn't look realistic. But if you put it to overlay, it starts looking more like this color up there, because it's kind of looks cool, and I think it was kind of looking like that there. However, you know, I edited this, or I took this like a year ago, and then I edited it 6 months later, so it's kind of hard to remember what it looked like, but I think it was more like this. And if it wasn't, you know, it looks better like this in my opinions. So I will make it look like this. So I have this, let me look at my notes. Sky blue, vignettes, brown thing. So in the bottom left, this. So I've occasionally just, some of the pictures that I really like, it's just like I paint colors random places, and well, that kind of makes it look interesting. So I'm also going to paint in here. This is like as simple painting as it gets, just gradients. Here, over this direction. Wrong way. This way. Yeah. Let's try more than that. And maybe a little bit down here. So while that doesn't look good, as you can guess, if we switch it to overlay mode, magically it looks not quite perfect. But if we decrease the opacity, you know, I in the last one I kept on like blur. I used to say something and it's like Gaussian now, and I said Gaussian then or something. It's like embarrassing. These videos I watched like 3-4 years later, and it's, whoa, I totally did not know how to pronounce words back then. And I still don't. I don't remember how to pronounce opacity, whatever. So this kind of, like the looks of this, it's not perfect, but you know, it's getting there. And then like, well, what should we do to this image? The sky just doesn't quite look right. I think it's these vignettes. Let's create a new vignette. Create a more sky vignette and not so much down here, because as you can see, down here is already kind of black. It's too dark. So select feather, 2500. That's just a big just black vignette out there. Well, this is what happens in a tutorial when you don't have 5 hours to fiddle with things. You know, it'll only get so great. Well, since we're doing this, I'm just gonna since this is a tutorial, I'll just throw in a few random things. So it's like there's some effects out there, like just some I've used some things in the past that are I kind of overuse. So I'm just gonna apply one of those, see what it looks like. Blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm gonna 65. You know, come in here, look. What does that look like? Oh, it looks dreadful, but there's a catch. We're gonna do something awesome. Maybe, you know. Normal overlay. What do you know? So it can look good if it's subtle. So if you look at this, you know, might be kind of hard to see. They have a word for what that does, but I've forgotten what it is. It's like micro contrast or something like that. It's kind of what you can do with an unsharpened mask or something like that. But it kind of creates this glowing thing. However, I'm not really liking that. Does it kind of look good in the sky? I'm gonna go with I like it right through here. So just we got to use a mask. So add a layer mask. Let's go with black, paint in here. P for paint. No, maybe not. Increase this. Let's go up here and click something like this. Paint white, 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 all the way through here. Does that look good? Nah, that doesn't look too great. And then we come in here and say, just so we can see it, that, and then we show Gaussian blur. No, come down here, do that, and then we run this, and it takes a few seconds. Does that look good? Does that look good? I don't know. I can't hear what you're saying. You're on the other side of that computer monitor. Well, it kind of looks good. I didn't do that, but I'm also this is I kind of want to. You're looking at the mountain. The point is not the trees. So we should like add some blackness down there. Add another one of these. Like actually paint this black. Not really paint because I'm not actually painting anything. Come in here, just blacken that stuff up a pinch. Wait for it to finish. Decrease that a bit. And then like this is too black down there. White. So I want to control it elsewhere. Let's just lighten up the bottom of this from that. And maybe the same on this layer. Over here. And then I can control the blackness down there more with this slider. You know. Then there's just a little another thing we can throw in here. So this sky, the reason I started doing this, well, you can see this is what happens when you're dealing with 8-bit images. You sometimes with vignettes you get this weirdo thing. Well, GIMP will soon have 32-bit or floating point or whatever capabilities, so you can just wait for that. But to get your attention away from this dreadful stuff and to make the sky look more like a real sky. Oh, that's interesting coloring there. I'm gonna come in here and Garrett pictures grunge. There's a few images that a friend's neighbor gave us for 3D images, 3D modeling a while ago, and they're just grunge textures. You can go online and find grunge textures. I'm going to use 28. Drag this in here. I'm going to come out here, scale this up. I just want a bit more texture. Really, you won't really see this at all. So it's not that big of a difference, that big of a deal, but it it just it if you're looking at the picture long enough, it just kind of makes it look a bit better. So we'll try this, see what it does. And we wait and wait and wait. Well, here's a cool. This is htop, you know, you non-Linux people. This is what you could use if you were using Linux. This cool terminal-based task manager. Anyway, this is almost done. And then click new layer to get the full size. Get rid of that thing. And then change this to overlay. Way too much. But just, doesn't that just sort of have a cloudy texture? It's moss, but it almost looks like clouds. This is, as you can tell, way too much. We're gonna decrease the opacity just to like. Also note, if you're on the top of this, it's big adjustments. If you're on, well, now it's like locking up. If you're on the bottom, it's supposed to be, if it works, what happens when you're dealing with 1.9 gig stuff. Here we go. Fine adjustment on the bottom. So just enough. I don't know if you can even see this in the video. Video is not that high of quality. Froze. There we go. Come on, you can do it. Just barely visible. Okay. So does that make a difference? Kind of. Hopefully, sort of. Add a layer mask, white. We only want that in the sky, so black all the way up there. You know, this number down here, the more layers you have, the more cool things that don't really add anything, but they're another layer. So, you know, the bigger this number here down at the bottom, the cooler the photo. Not really, but, you know, that's some thinking you can do in while editing. What in the world is this? Oh, that was that layer I added randomly that I was going to put this on, not realizing that it would create a new one. I also want another one down. Which one do I like better? I think, like, I only have 3. They're tiling. That's the nice thing with these particular images. What was that? That was 30. This one, yeah. What I really want is I want it right through here. This rock. This rock looks like the moon, really. Up there, it kind of looks like the moon, and so you're not seeing quite that grungy texture that really it looks like. So I'm gonna add back in some of that from moss. You know, moss has its uses in in images, at least. Let's go with that. And then we patiently wait and wait. And where's the slider that allows me to readjust this? There we go. And then we put this to overlay. And then we go. Move this up. I'm looking at this region right through here. Okay, so that. No, I want this down here as well. So add a layer mask. Let's just go with black. And then we'll paint in this whiteness. X. The X key switches between these two colors, which is kind of nice. Paint in this texture, which is way too much, but this allows me to actually see where I'm painting it in. Just right through here. And then X to get rid of this little bit I slipped up. And then all the way through here. And then try to get rid of some of these. Shrink this down. Oops. Size. Shrink this down and just paint in some of that. Try to get rid of the trees that are in there. I'm trying to make this tutorial not too long, so hopefully this doesn't take too long. And then we go in here and say opacity. Like, you don't really notice a difference. Now it's gone. But right in here, it'll start showing up briefly. It just, it adds a bit more dirty look to it. And then you make it look nice, and then you kind of go, let's decrease that. Just looking at my older images, you know, they're just too overdone. This one probably is amongst them. And so to try to reduce the overdoneness, it's like make it look decent and then decrease all your effects a bunch. Filter, Gaussian blur. Remember to click on the mask when you're doing this. Reshow this. Come down here just to make it more. Where in the world did that go? Well, oh, it's previewing it. Well, I guess we can just hope it works. I can't see the preview of it. And it should smooth out the edges a bit so it's not as abrupt coming in. I don't really know if that did anything. It should have, but you know. You can find these sort of grunge images on Google. And there we have sort of something. Does that sort of look good? I think it looks decent. Well, let's try one more thing. Another thing, you should really save your work. This, it's kind of cruel. Do you want to 25 minutes? Wow. This tutorial's getting long. One more thing up here. Let's just darken this part of the sky here, and then cut that down a lot. Just because we're looking at the mountain, not this white, and this is too bright right through there. And so if we come in here and decrease that, you'll focus a pinch more on the mountain itself. And so there's more or less. Then we export it. I'm going to export it as TIFF and GIMP.TIFF just because TIFF exports fast, because it's not. You could export it as PNG or PNG and then just not compress it as much, but I tend to compress stuff. Let's save this just in case I want to go back to it. Tutorial aligned. GIMP. Save this file. Wait patiently. Maybe I shouldn't have saved it, but come back here. Go back. So let's just compare. See how we did. See what I would do differently if I was doing this again. The vignette, way too much. That's why you kind of have to like go away and come back and be like, that vignette's way too much. It's really easy to go overdo stuff on the vignette. And then down here, you know, it's about the same. Looks very similar, but in either case, it doesn't look much different. I kind of like this coloring right through here better, but this was 25 minutes. This was 3-4 hours. So, you know, but that was kind of fun, wasn't it? I hope so. And that, hopefully you just saw a few different ways of doing things, maybe some things you don't do when you're editing images, and maybe I convinced somebody that GIMP is decent. And yeah, so I use GIMP for all of my stuff, and you can do some cool things if you think this looks decent. If you hate it, you know, maybe this isn't going to help you like GIMP, but if you don't, this thing up here, you know, I'm getting kind of tired of that. That's why I used to use Sign Paint for doing certain things like the vignettes and whatnot, because it supports higher bit depth. But this is decent. This is pretty good. I like it. And I guess that concludes the tutorial. It's getting kind of long, even though it's kind of short compared to other people like Blender Guru's tutorials. But hope you enjoyed this, and see you next time I do a tutorial. Have fun editing photos with open source software.